together, the city and the province coming together to try to recognize the need that families have, and to work with Indigenous communities as well and Indigenous leaders to assist them in the next steps of this really horrific tragedy. So maybe I'll turn it to the Premier at this time.
Sure. Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you for inviting me to City Hall to be here. The very important issue. This is something that I brought up earlier at the State of Province. It's an absolutely horrific tragedy that has taken place out there, and you know, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of these victims. We have reached out as a government to Prairie Green, the owners and operators of Prairie Green, and reached out to the RM of Rosser. Both are very cooperative in our wanting to put a pause on anything moving forward from here while we take the time to work behind the scenes to see what else and what the next steps are, working with Indigenous communities to ensure that we get to the bottom of this. And so that will be the next steps. And you know, I'm just very grateful to the Mayor for inviting me here today and to be a part of this. And I think with the spirit of cooperation, everyone working together, I think this is what a very positive thing, I hope, for the families.
So, sorry, do you have more to announce? Okay, so
Take
what exactly does pause operations mean? There'll be the landfill will be completely out of use for a set period of time, and do you know how long, if that's what that means?
We don't know how long yet. Again, it takes, you know, we'll see what the next steps are in this process, but for right now, they're agreeing as well to a pause of anything coming into the landfill.
And is the idea to determine if a search is feasible?
Well, I think that will be all a part of it as well, in terms of, you know, what the next steps are that we'll take. We don't want to, you know, presuppose what that may be, what comes out of that. So I think it's very important that, you know, for right now, we take this pause and we get this right.
What other options are on the table? If it's about a search, there might be other options. What could next steps involve?
So I'm not sure yet, to be frank. I mean, we're working with our departments, we're working with the City of Winnipeg, we're working with Indigenous communities, you know, we'll work with police, we'll work with other law enforcement. We'll see what does that mean in terms of, you know, what will that look like moving forward. I think you know, we need to assess the site, and we need to do many different things over the course of the next little while. In the meantime, all we're calling for right now is a pause.
What else do you need to know in order to inform a decision, whether or not to have some form of search, large, limited? What else do you need to learn before you make that decision?
Well, I think we'll learn a number of things throughout the course of the next little while. I don't know what that will be, Bart. I mean, that's why we're taking a pause right now, to ensure that we take that time and that we get this right. We find out as much information as we possibly can.
So we know, just to,
yeah.
Go ahead, please.
No, as you said, I think it's important also today to remember that the Winnipeg Police Service, you know, did make an arrest. There's an individual right now accused on 4 counts of a first-degree murder, and that person is incarcerated. I think that's important. Certainly, you know, and it's when moving ahead in this way and asking for the pause, we in no way want to, nor do we believe we would in any way jeopardize that case. But I think, you know, as the Premier said, it's important that we, you know, in the next steps, that obviously the Indigenous community, Indigenous leaders help inform next steps as well. And so we just, again, our goal today is just to pause operations there, have them pause so that, you know, next steps can be determined by the officials.
And which officials precisely? The private operator, the police, other forensic experts? I'm just trying to...
You're right, but honestly, probably potentially all of those and more is the possibility.
And this landfill is where the majority of the commercial, multifamily, and industrial waste from the city goes. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's a majority. I do understand that some, you know, from the city, it's private. It's a private operation, and so there are, you know, businesses within the city of Winnipeg who privately, you know, hire haulers to haul waste to that site.
There were calls for the resignation of the police chief. How do you respond to those calls?
Well, ultimately that's the determination by the police board. That's dealt with by the police board.
But you sit on the police board, Mr. Mayor.
Right, and so I don't speak for the police board, certainly Councillor Chambers speaks for the police board, and that's the hiring of the chief and the accountability of the chief is related to the police board, that's the police board's job.
But as a member of the police board, what you would be expressing a personal opinion when you are there. So if you were to take part in a vote today, would you support a call for the dismissal or support the continuation of the police chief for the 1 year remaining on his contract?
The focus today is putting a pause on operations at the site.
You said, I think, that the operator and RM are already on board with this. Does that mean it's stopped now? It's already paused immediately?
I believe, we can double check on the details, but I believe they had already stopped a section of it, and I'm not sure all the details, but we can certainly get that from you. I know the Department of Environment, Climate and Parks has been in touch with the owner-operator.
Is there any compensation being offered depending on how long the shutdown is?
Haven't even had those discussions yet. Yeah, haven't contemplated that. I think it's just, I think it's great that they took it upon themselves to stop the operations themselves first. We reached out, found this out, and, I thought that was great on their part.
They had already stopped.
I believe so. Yeah, we'll get the timing on that, but yeah.
So they had stopped and then they reached out to you?
No, we reached out to them to just, because we were going to come down and have this conversation today.
Okay.
So I just wanted to see where they were at and say that this potentially, after our conversation, could be, asking for a pause, and what would they think about that? And they were very, very helpful.
Do you have talked with the federal government about any response they can provide to?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Do you have talked with the federal government and what their response?
I have not spoken to the federal government today. My intention is to update Minister Miller. Minister Miller and I did have some conversation the last couple of days, just general conversation, nothing specific. He just wanted, kind of offering support and wondering how it's going to Winnipeg. I intend, after this meeting today, to speak to Minister Miller just to apprise him of the update of this step. And I think once again, what's important is, it's our effort here today to support families, to support the Indigenous community, and I'm really pleased. Again, I want to thank the Premier. A phone call in the morning, and the Premier's here in the afternoon. Levels of government don't often, frankly, operate that way. This was quick. But I also the RM of Rosser and the operator, and I just think there's this general agreement that we have to do something together.
And the thought of pausing means you can go and do an extensive study to see exactly what it would entail to do a search? Is that the goal?
Well, what the next steps would be, moving forward. So again, this is a start, and then once we get more information, we'll keep you up to date with what transpires. But we want to make sure that we're working with Indigenous communities. The mayor has already talked about the federal government as well and involvement there. And so, we just want to make sure we're doing that extensive background work.
And when you look at the health risks that police have talked about in searching this, there's apparently asbestos there and animal remains and some other things that could cause some human health risks. I guess who do you think would be suited to be assigned to kind of take on that risk, or is that, maybe address that first.
So what I would say to that is that, again, this is our first step. And obviously that will be part of the, investigation that will take place to see. We don't want to put anyone's health in harm's way as a result of this. And so I think that information needs to come forward before we make any decisions on who's best to do what, when. So that will be part of what, the background research will be.
I just want to take a moment to thank Diane Redsky and Sandra Delaron and Bernadette Smith and the other Indigenous leaders who, have, are reaching out, and the goal is to continue the conversations and to assist the Indigenous community of Winnipeg and this province, and specifically the families. So thank you very much for your interest today as well.
Is the assumption that it wouldn't be Winnipeg Police doing the search then? Because they've said they're not the experts?
Yeah, there's no assumptions at this point. No assumptions. And again, this is a pause to determine next steps, and the officials will determine that.
If they have the ability to determine their own operations, which is kind of how the Police Services Act is written, though, wouldn't it be up to them to make that call? Or are you saying they made the wrong call and City Hall is going to weigh in?
No, I'm just saying,
Provinces.
ultimately, it's up to, we just asked for a pause to determine what next steps could be and should be, and we don't know the answers to that yet.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Mr. Chambers, do you have a minute?
Well as the families, ensuring that the families are, as they grieve, as they go through this process, that, we as a board get information from them that will help to improve policing for the Indigenous communities.
How do you think Chief Smythe has acted so far in this situation?
Chief Smythe is responsible for the Winnipeg Police Service, and what we have to remember is the fact that the remains of Rebecca Contois were found at the Brady landfill, and we were able to provide that level of comfort for that family, and that justice will be sought as a result. The additional bodies, given the complexity of the search, given the health risks that are imminent, these are all factors that were part of the consideration when the chief initially spoke about this. Now we're seeing the community is asking for, additional resources to be provided to allow for a search to be conducted. And given the fact that the community has just come through the residential school system and the unmarked graves, we have to be sensitive to that. And that's exactly where we are right now in requesting this pause.
But some are also specifically asking for the resignation of the police chief.
Well, I don't speak unilaterally for the board. This is a conversation that we'll have as a board.
Thank you.
Do you expect any news on this today at all? I know you said you're meeting at 4:30.
Yeah, we're meeting at 4:30. Not seeing what the time is now, but we're on our way there to have an impromptu meeting and discuss this further.
So you don't know if that's going to have developments today or not at this point?
I mean, everything is status quo right now.
Okay.
The only thing that we're focusing now is ensuring that the operations at that site are paused so that we can determine what those next steps are.
Okay.
Forgive me, I was on the phone right at the beginning of that. You said the police board is meeting at 4:30?
We are meeting at police headquarters with the executive.
The executive of the police.
Correct.
Okay.
Good.
And we being,
The Winnipeg Police Board, which includes Mayor Gillingham.
and the executive of the police, which includes Chief Smythe.
Chief Smythe and I guess his investigation team, Inspector Pike, and the same inspector that provided the briefing with regards to the forensic information.
The kid.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's basically when this started.
You guys didn't look that heavy. I just got the clearing one, and I went, usually you guys are friendly, and I was like, all right, get the hell out of here.